So Buck 52,000 says, my financial advisor is thinking of putting a Bitcoin ATM in one of his offices. We had a dinner a few weeks ago and he had spirited conversation about Bitcoin. Must have left a mark. Okay. Let's just touch on that quickly, because this is part of the reason I titled the episode Bitcoin is about to explode right now. And I just want you to take a second here. I want you to take a second and think about your life. Think about how many people, and not just like out in the world, but like in your direct circle of friends and family and coworkers. Think about how many of those people own Bitcoin. Probably a couple, probably a small percentage of people. And then take it a step further and say, how many people actually understand Bitcoin? Very small amount. And that's a good example. And if you think about all the financial advisors, and I forget who it was yesterday, it was somebody on Nostr. They said that they reached out to their financial advisor and asked to have a portion allocated to MicroStrategy. And the financial advisor did not know what MicroStrategy is. The best performing stock over the last 4 years, their financial advisor did not know what MicroStrategy was. They had to give them the ticker for MicroStrategy. A financial advisor. This isn't some janitor at the local Giant Tiger. This is a financial advisor who did not know what MicroStrategy was. So there's a lot of things right now happening, right? And that's going to be like the next thing, I think, is going to be the financial advisors. They're starting to catch on, but very slow. And you have to keep in mind here, and this is what I want to really focus on today, is you have to keep in mind how slow everything moves, right? There's a ton of people out there right now, whether that's individuals, financial advisors, companies, and other ventures, who know what's going to happen in January. They know what's going to happen. As soon as Trump takes office, as soon as the strategic Bitcoin reserve is put into action, they know what's going to happen. So everybody right now is trying to front run the US. Everybody, countries, companies, individuals, financial advisors, everybody's trying to front run the US for obvious reasons. Because once that announcement's made, it's over. It's over. Like, we're going to go from a month ago, for $1 in the US, you could get more than 1,000 sats for that dollar. After this plays out, that's going to shrink substantially. And I don't know how fast it's going to move. I think it's going to move pretty fast. Because if you actually stopped and looked at it, and I might do this in a future show here, but it's, I tried to map it out in my head, but it was a little bit more than I had for time. But if you took a look at it, if you compared today, 2024, where we are today, and you compared this exactly where we were in 2020, same day, same time. And I talked about this earlier in the week, where Bitcoin went from 18,000 on December 9th, 2020, to 40,000 on January 9th, 2021. So within a month, it went from 18 to 40. But that's like the minor part of it. If you actually look at who owned Bitcoin at that time versus who owns Bitcoin now, the whole thing with Bitcoin is the scarcity, the fixed supply of it. And there's only so much Bitcoin available. It's the only asset like that. But you have to look at, even though at the time, there was there was about, 18 million Bitcoin mined at the time. But you have to look at actually who owned that Bitcoin and what their intentions were. So there was a lot of retail. There was a lot of people who didn't really know what they were doing at the time, because you have to remember, Wall Street couldn't buy at this time. Countries weren't buying at this time. It was all just the little guy, people like me and you. They didn't have the conviction. They were buying it because the number was going up. But over the last 4 years since then, if you look at where a lot of that Bitcoin has flowed into, whether that's El Salvador, whether that's MicroStrategy, whether that's Marathon Holdings, whether that's state pension funds, it's a different dynamic, because you have to understand that those Bitcoin are going into those wallets. And this is a very small portion of this type of Bitcoiner where we are today. But you have to remember that when that Bitcoin goes into those wallets, it's staying there for a very long time. Probably it's going to be there longer than we're alive. So what does that do to the supply? It makes it even tighter, even though it's not even though there might have been the same amount of available Bitcoin at that time, the owners of the Bitcoin today are long-term hodlers. And the amount of long-term hodlers is only going to go up from here, especially after the announcement comes from the USA. So it's a totally different dynamic now. Totally. Not only is the foundation and the floor much more, much stronger, but like this, that's going to create such a supply crunch dynamic where those coins that have been moved for the last 4 years and continue moving every day, those coins are staying there for a very long time. And then you look at the new available supply. Back then it was 900 Bitcoin per day. Now it's 450 Bitcoin per day, new Bitcoin. So when this thing starts moving, like I know we've seen like a slow gradual climb here, but when this thing starts moving and people understand how scarce this asset is and how those Bitcoin that have been moved to MicroStrategy and Semler and Marathon and El Salvador and the Kingdom of Bhutan and soon to be the United States, those coins are going to be there forever. And you just have to understand what that does to the supply of Bitcoin and the whole dynamic here. So you're going to have demand skyrocketing. You're going to have a supply that not only the mining schedule, but like the actual available Bitcoin supply is going to fall off a cliff. And that dynamic is going to create the biggest fucking explosion that we've ever seen in history. Like it's not my opinion or my hope or anything like that. Like it's very basic math and very basic economics of what's going to happen here.